Ready?
Ready?
Awesome. What's up, guys? This is PJ. I'm here with
Ashkan.
and we are the co-founders of Keystamp. Keystamp is a self-growth channel, and we aim to share Enneagram content with you guys through this series that we're going to make to help you get to know yourself better and then get to know all the people around you a little bit better as well. So, Ashkan, do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about what Enneagram is for someone who's hearing that for the first time?
Sure. I kind of start with my personal experience and journey towards Enneagram, into Enneagram, and learning about it. So the first thing I realized about Enneagram was that looks like apparently there is a knowledge out there which is going to tell you about yourself. And what are the reasons behind your different motives, how you feel, why I feel like that, why I act in a specific way, why different thoughts comes to me in a certain way. That was my first encounter or first experience with Enneagram. And of course, later on, when I started to study the books, go to classes, I realized it is a knowledge, a very ancient knowledge gathered throughout a long time, throughout the history, so many different groups of people with way different backgrounds, all the way from psychology towards mathematics, spirituality, all those different people with different backgrounds added to that knowledge. And that's one of the aspects I really, really like it, because it's almost like a living being, and it's just growing throughout the different ages. And we will use it as a great tool, the way we need it in every single time and era, or like the way we need it right now.
Yeah, I mean, very simply put, Enneagram is one of the ways that you can learn more about your personality, your identity, so to speak. And there are many methods. Like, for example, astrology is similar in sense that it's something that tells you more about you. But what's so, I would say, surprising and shocking about Enneagram is that it is so accurate in ways that you probably don't want to hear about. It's not like, oh, you're so great. It's like, hey, you are great, but you also have these qualities that sometimes you keep those qualities to yourself and you don't want people to know. And it's almost like when you look at the Enneagram and you discover your type, it feels like somebody follows you around with a camera and takes note of every thought and motive that you have and then shares those. And it's so eye-opening, both to ourselves and to others as well that know us or that we know them. So where do you think people should start when they are starting an Enneagram journey?
That's a good question. The first class or course that I usually like to teach or work with those who like to know about Enneagram or come to our organization, Keystamp. By the way, Keystamp means who am I? Is to bring the focus inside and work on this inner observer. That I get what pretty much the yoga traditions are trying to do, that you bring back the consciousness and awareness and attention within. And that was probably the greatest thing that, or the greatest motivation for me, that I kind of brought Enneagram into my life and into my head, and into my heart and into my body. Because it is pointing out, bringing that arrow, the peak of that, the top of that arrow towards myself, rather than being all the time out self and trying to judge others and think about others and analyze other things. I'm just going to start analyzing myself. So before even getting to so much of the details and a structure of Enneagram, I recommend and I encourage everybody to bring the consciousness back and start just observing myself, without any need initially to put it in any specific type or structure. Who am I? What am I doing? Am I angry right now? Am I happy? Or do I feel some fear against something? Just know myself a little better.
And I think that's so important, because so often we have these emotions and we have these thoughts, then we have this other thought that's like, ooh, that's not a good thought to have, or that's not a good emotion to have, so let me hide that. And when we do that over time, you kind of forget what you're supposed to feel like and what those natural reactions are and what your natural motives are. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? So creating that initial space to observe what's going on in here is, no, whether it's Enneagram or whatever method you're using, it's the first step of growth. But after that, I think you go through the descriptions of the types briefly. Right. And, sometimes when you just hear one of the types, it just jumps out at you and it feels like it's just describing you exactly. Some other times, in my case, for example, like it took a little bit longer because I was so hesitant to admit that I am the type that I am. It was almost like my mind didn't even want to believe that possibility. I remember like hearing that, I was like, yeah, that's not me. That's how I forget. Like I didn't even think about it. And then I remember I heard the type that I liked the most. I was like, ooh, that's a successful person. I was like, I am that. And that's when you're not really sitting in that observer mode. Those are the tendencies of the personality to want to be something other than it is. I think at this part of the video, it would be good to go through the types very briefly and see if they stand out to somebody. So type 1, which Ashkan has type 1 heavily in him. You're not primarily a type 1.
I'm leading with type 2, but I have a very strong wing.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to discuss about wing
in future videos, yeah. So type 1, the name of type 1 is called the perfectionist. And I feel like just from hearing that title, some people might be like, oh, that's me. The type 1, from what I've learned, is that it's a person who internally feels that they know what is right. They know what is the perfect right way of doing something. And they have this internal system of guiding them towards that right thing. And so what happens is when you have an image of the ideal, what it's supposed to look like outside, what tends to happen is that you look everywhere, and everywhere you look, you see dysfunction. You see something could be done better. And a lot of times type 1s have this internal battle that like they just want to control a lot of these things that are outside of themselves to make them the perfect match, the perfect image of what they have. And type 1s also tend to have this thing called the inner critic. It's like the loudest inner critic. We all, to a degree, have an inner critic, I would say. But for type 1s, it's almost like a torture mechanism. It's inside them, and you can explain more about this as well. It's inside them, and it's always telling them, ooh, like focus there, it could be better. Or that person could have done X, Y, and Z better. And internally, it's like a war, because you're never going to accomplish that. And during times, for example, like during times like now that everything seems so out of our control, imagine trying to make everything perfect.
Another actually name that, well, these names are, we have a general understanding of these expression and words, perfectionist, so this might not be the exact thing that we're talking about it in Enneagram, but that's a good way, or the best way that we could kind of communicate a meaning in one or two words. So, but it definitely doesn't describe all about one type. Yeah. So it's not that, so many people might hear this and say like, I'm not a perfectionist, or to be a perfectionist is not a good thing, so another name is reformer, or none of these types are bad or good, or one is better than the other one. It's not like that. They're all needed at certain times. And we just need to be in balance with all different aspects of my all the potencies and all the characteristics that I can develop in myself. So yes, type 1, wherever they see a process is going on, if I want to say about my experience, I need to see how I can make it better. And the attention, and the energy, as we know that it follows the attention, it goes to like what could be done better, like what could be. Looks like there is a little bit of error, or not an error, but it's not as exact. Should I give you a really, really exact example? Because right now I'm thinking about the very first word that you use in this video, like astrology. And throughout the video, in these last few minutes that we're talking, this word just still there. And I'm just like thinking about it, like, should we astrology and Enneagram? Because in my mind, like two different worlds, although they just give, the same thing. So I cannot just let it go, It stays there, and I keep like thinking about it, like, and it kind of like, I have to do some inner work as Enneagram start, explaining about this word. And I learned from my great teachers also in Enneagram about that. Like, you have to kind of deal with these inner critics and things like that within you, and try to have an eye on that and keep it under control. But if I'm not really kind of familiar with my type and with my pattern, I'm just gonna go out and like first for type 1 is actually within. I'm just gonna go, oh no. At the same time, type 1 is very, very afraid of making mistake, because he wants to be correct, he wants to be good, Yeah. So there is a lot of things happening inside before something comes out.
And as a type 9, I want to keep the harmony. So after this video, I'm going to talk to you about astrology and Enneagram.
I'm going to learn from you.
Yeah, I'm going to put that to rest and make you feel good inside, because that's what type 9s do. Which I think actually I wasn't thinking about going in this way. I was going to go 1, 2, 3 that way, but I think let's go through 1, 9, and 8.
Which are all body-based.
Yes, exactly. What does that mean, body-based? Why are they called body-based?
So before we get to these 9 separate types, initially Enneagram is discussing about 3 categories in general. The body-based, which is 8, 9, and 1, and then the heart-based, which is 2, 3, and 4, and then the mind-based, which is 5, 6, and 7. So the main idea behind, or the main, I could say, feeling or emotion is not the best word. So many words could be really used for this, but anyway, for body-based is that you're feeling some anger. That's the main feeling that the body-based groups are feeling. And although we're talking about an anger, as we go forward in Enneagram, we learn more about these things. It's not that I'm a type 1, I'm always angry at people necessarily. We get more familiar with these terms and what do they really mean, how does it work in me. And then type 2, 3, and 4 are heart-based, and they are more concerned with their image, how they feel about things, how other would feel and see us, or feel about me. So the consciousness, the concentration, and attention goes towards like how I'm being observed from outside. Am I looking okay? Is this view fine? But the body base is more, what is my territory? What is my, border? And what I need to say? What do I need to explain about myself? All those things. There is a lot. There's so many things.
So deep, like you can.
But to keep it brief, and then 5, 6, and 7 are actually mind-based, because this is a very basic rule of life that you need to stay alive. So the main feeling over there is for 5, 6, and 7 are fear, and then you want to make sure I'm safe. I can trust people around me. I can, you need some approval. You want to make sure you're not missing something else somewhere else, so that's why they call it the main, 5, 7, and 6 are called mind-based, and the main feeling for all of them is fear, and then 2, 3, 4, heart-based, and the main feeling is distress. And I could also mention shame to some extent. And then 8, 9, and 1, body-based, and the main feeling over there is anger.
It's interesting because sometimes you hear these words like anger and shame, and I remember me hearing anger, I was like, yeah, I don't have anger. Like, I don't have anger issues, because you think you have anger issues if you are in that group, or at least I did when I first heard it. But I it's funny because I realized like the type 9. So each one of these types that is in the anger group or the body group, right? They have a different relationship to anger. It's almost like they're all dating this person called anger, but like in different ways. So the type 8 expresses that anger, and that's their relationship to that anger. The type 9 denies it, so they even forget that they have anger. I remember like something happened and it really like pulled the rug from underneath me, so to speak, and then I like realized I'm just so angry, and I have been angry for a long time, but like not in my conscious mind. I had no idea. But when it finally came out, it was like such a relief of like, oh my God, I didn't even know how much I'm holding in. And so the denial is like the relationship of type 9s to anger. And type 1s, from my understanding, it's not that they deny it or forget it. It's more that they try to keep it repressed. They feel it strongly, but for the most part, they don't think it's right, it's perfect to express that. So
usually they use in Enneagram it's called disconnected. Sometimes like it's the person is disconnected with that anger, doesn't even know or suppress it. Yeah, and then type 1, you were mentioning 8, 9. And then type 1 is actually bringing the anger inside. So as you said, it's not like, again, these words in Enneagram, we learn more about it. It's just the best words that we have. Maybe in the future there would be better words. As I said, Enneagram keeps growing and, like getting better and better, So it's not like these 3 types are always angry at people. It's not like that.
Yeah. I think you were saying like, hopefully in future we have better words. What would be amazing if in the future we had a tool that would make you feel what another person is feeling, like viscerally feeling in your body? Because you have said, like for you, anger, when you feel like something is not being done right, it's like this like gut feeling of like this like, it's like a punch in your stomach almost, or like being stabbed in your stomach. It's like it burns.
Yeah, I feel burning. Yeah.
And that's one of the things about Enneagram is that it's not just looking at your behavior and looking at what you're doing and then saying that you're that type based on that. Because 2 different types might do the same exact thing, but what Enneagram looks at is the motivation underlying those actions. So, you might do something to like fix this table back here because you want it to be perfect. A type 3 might fix that table because they want it to look as like successful, make sure the right books are there and stuff like that to portray that image. So the action seems the same, but the motivation is different. So let's move on to type 8, which for a lot of people is one of the most fascinating types of the Enneagram and one that they have a hard time understanding for a long time. Mm-hmm. The type 8 is called the challenger, according to Enneagram, and also the leader. So type 8s, from what I've learned is that they, in their childhood, were in an environment, and these childhood situations are not always the same, but for the most part, for the average 8s, the childhood territory, the childhood situation was one that they didn't feel safe. They felt that they need to stand up for themselves and be strong and go after basically what they want and get their needs met despite whatever happens. Do you want to talk?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure necessarily feeling safe or unsafe, but definitely feeling like if I want to be properly heard, if I want to take what is mine, if I want to be present, I have to be strong.
Right.
And then this is the fixation, that word that is used in Enneagram, that kind of like the attention or the awareness kind of gets fixed in something, right, which is not bad by itself. There's nothing wrong with that. That's definitely needed. But when I get stuck, the consciousness gets fixed in one point and is not able to move. When you're talking with your friend, you don't need that much of strong presence. It's just a cool lunch, and you're just discussing with your friend. So another name for type 8 is protector, because although type 8s are externally very strong, I mean, the behavior is like, their presence, they actually they don't mind telling you what they think and how they feel, whatever is inside, they just give it out, not maybe a type 2 or 3 would hesitate, like, should I say that? If I say that, they may not like me, but not type 8, like it's straightforward. Although that outside layer is very strong, the inner world, or the inner child, or whatever we could say, that the inside is like very, very, like vulnerable and innocent. Yeah, and innocence is a very good word, and it's often used, and that's pretty much why you are strong outside, because like if you let someone in, you're just gonna be, really close to that person. You don't want to get hurt, So as I said, it's one of the beauties for me of Enneagram is that you can actually see all different aspects. It's not like, oh, this person is just, like for type 8, many of the type 8s share this experience that their friends were telling them like, oh, why are you so angry? And say, I'm not angry, I'm just normal. Because they are very comfortable using anger as a tool. Right. And they don't really mean to hurt anybody or be tough or more than enough, strong more than enough. But so I guess this is a little bit about type 8. So one is reformer, type 8, like protector, and type 9, I'm not sure if we mentioned some of the words, but mediator, peacemaker. He wants to keep peace all the time, and he doesn't mind, or she doesn't mind, to go all the way to the point that actually ignore what I want and what is my thought, to just keep the peace among everybody.
Yeah. I think I like to think of each Enneagram type as like a superhero that we can rely on. Like at certain times, I at least like, I don't know if you've seen Avengers, where they have all these different superheroes. It's almost like each type is like its own superhero, and at different times, you can learn from different types. And we all have, a little bit of each type in us. So for me, for example, as a type 9, and we're going to talk about type 9 now, type 9s tend to not express that anger, or like always want to keep the peace at a cost to their own being. So it's almost like they lose a sense of self, because the more they blend into the background, the more they blend into the group and become invisible, the more peace, at least from their actions, the more peace they're going to have. They're not going to do anything to mess up the peace. Hopefully nobody else does anything to mess up the peace. But what I was going to say is that because type 9s tend to be like that, they can learn from type 8s and their ability to be honest and tell the truth and tell people what's on their mind, regardless of how people might feel. And I personally have had a tendency to date a lot of type 8s, because they were like superheroes that I would look up to, be like, how did you just tell that server at the restaurant that you didn't like your food? I would never do that. I would just eat it. It doesn't matter what it's like. And like I would just be like, wow, like that is a possibility that a human being can have. Like it doesn't even occur to me. And so each type, like, obviously we want to ultimately the goal with Enneagram is to grow beyond the shell of that type and grow beyond it. But we can all learn something from those, because they all reflect a quality that we can maybe strengthen in ourselves. So type 9, do you want to say anything more? I
think type 9 is okay. We discussed about it. I don't know how much do you want us to discuss and how long.
I mean, I would love to hear more about myself.
It's a good thing that you expressed that.
Yeah. But I digress, because I remember I tried to make a type 9 video one day, and I realized it was 45 minutes, and I realized, wow, I'm just talking about myself, and I'm like really enjoying the experience, because type 9s tend to like not want to shine, or like not want to put themselves out in the front. So for me, it was like, wow, like I can hide behind Enneagram and talk about myself. So what an opportunity. Okay, so let's move to type 2, which now we're starting to talk about the heart-based types. Type 2 is called a helper, right? What word?
Helper or giver. Yeah.
Since you're type 2, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so type 2 is very concerned that how I'm being observed from outside. And there is so much of love that you have to give to others. So hopefully you can get it back. You're basically kind of relying on this strategy that I have to just totally selflessly, just with so much emotion and love, go towards people and do whatever I can do for them to be their best friend, to be the best person. And when type 2 is going towards unhealthy mood, because every single one of these types has a could go towards healthy, yes, a spectrum, and go towards unhealthy. So when type 2 goes towards unhealthy, type 2 doesn't even consider himself or herself like what are my needs? Am I just like killing myself to just go and help someone that person doesn't even need so much help at all? Like that person might be actually getting a little bothered by this much attention and love I'm just trying to unload on that person. And I can do that even not to myself, but also the entire like group which I am kind of like in like overviewing, or not overview, but kind of like if for example if I'm a manager at work and I'm a type 2, I'm ready to not only sacrifice myself but sacrifice my entire team which is working under my care, like for the other departments. So I'm just gonna give that entire like like feeling of being sacrificed and being ready to do all the hard work for myself, just all the time me, so others would love me somehow, like, and then I'm just gonna unload that also to the group which I'm taking care of, whether it's my family, whether it's my friends. So I'm just gonna consider my group like myself, like, and then but of course at a healthy level, type 2 can give a lot of love to others, like that's kind of type 2's expertise, how to feel for you. Right. Do you need anything? Can I do anything? Can I serve you something? That's what it's called actually, a helper or a giver.
Yeah. Is it right to say that type 2s are very strong at empathy and understanding other people's needs? Or do they just think that, oh, this person might have this need, so let me go do that?
Well, in order to answer that question, since I'm coming from an academic background, if you really want to give certain answer, there should be like some sort of a statistical data that I can, talk based on that. However, as Enneagram is explaining, yes, we can say in average, type 2s are really good at understanding others' needs. Although type 4 could also really truly understand you and try to feel you, because type 4 is has this tendency to go really, really deep, but type 2 is just like, sometimes I feel like I can just read emotions, just like some people, in the stories you see like they read minds. I read emotions. As soon as I'm just walking in the morning, I just go to work and people around me, I say hi. I say, oh, this person is not feeling so great. I have to do something for this person to feel happy, and also kind of like, I also use this for sometimes emotion shifter, just like shapeshifters that you can just look like, but you can actually like just totally forget about yourself and how am I feeling at the moment. I'm just gonna feel like that person. I'm just gonna shift my entire consciousness and awareness and attention. So my energy also goes to be that person, to feel like that person, and totally get lost and forget about how I am feeling at this moment.
Which is interesting because that sounds similar to a type 9, but I think the motive is different. Like a type 9 might forget about their own desires and needs and preferences because they want to keep the peace. They don't really care like necessarily, oh, does that person love me? I'm going to do all these things, or I'm going to let go of myself in order for that person to love me. They just want to keep harmony and like not be bothered, basically.
Correct. As you mentioned, it's not like type 9 doesn't really care about others and only about peace, but the type 9 part of us is after peace, not necessarily solving the problem. For example, a person, like at work, this person might be really good at keeping people happy, but the type 9 might not necessarily solving issues, but just kind of keeping the customers happy for you. But a type 2 is really there, like tries to really help that person. Even that person doesn't really ask for help. Like type 2 wants to go and be the hero and save the day.
Yeah. I remember one time me and you were eating and I think somebody asked that if they can use my phone to like make a call. In my mind, I was like, Ashkan at this point is probably ready to give your car keys, like your wallet, just go buy yourself whatever you need, bring the car back. So I'm glad I stepped in that situation. Okay, moving on to, since we're like moving actually to the types, like in each domain that we're going to the types on the side, and then we go in the middle. So we went 1 and 8, and then we went to 9. We're going to go to 2 and 4, and 4 is the romantic.
Yeah, that is a very good confusing way to
Yeah.
two types.
Let's do.
We're good friends, so I don't mind to joke with you.
Since his type 1 is just gonna go crazy right now, we're gonna go to type 3. Due to popular demand. No, it's all good. Because I tend to like go to type 3 in good times, so I'm in a good mood. All right, let's go to type 3. Type 3 is called the achiever. Type 3s really are good at getting stuff done. They're good at figuring out what the path to success looks like in different environments. So like if you grew up, let's say in a tribe in Africa, the vision for success is different there than it is here in the US. It's Western civilized place. No, I don't like civilized word, but like a Western country. So what the type 3 tends to do is that they want to be seen. They want to get validation and affirmation from others externally, and they try to gain that by figuring out what success looks like in the context that they're in, and then doing whatever it takes to achieve that. So they might become workaholics basically, like to get, if that's what success is in that context. Their superpower is that they can probably look at an objective, know the quickest way, the quickest path to get there, and then really be good at analyzing the obstacles that might come up in the process of achieving that, and then eliminating those obstacles and getting to the goal. What tends to be the downside of type 3 though is that they are so focused on portraying the self-image. It's almost like creating it's like, let's say you make an Instagram profile and you just put these photos on there that are really curated and like just trying to portray this image of perfection. And then you do that so much and you live in that image so much that you forget who you really are beyond the image and underneath the image. And so type 3s tend to really feel lost at some point. Or if that image is, being threatened by anything, like let's say you're a football player and then you get injured and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can't play football anymore, so who am I? Mm-hmm. That can be a really tough place for a type 3 to be.
Yes, type 3 is really afraid of or failure in life. And one of my type 3 teachers was telling me, like, my greatest fear in life is that when I get old, I cannot take care of myself and I cannot be productive anymore.
Yeah.
I guess you explained type 3 really well. I'm not sure if I want to add so much to that.
Initially, I thought I'm a type 3. I also wanted to be a type 3. But I've seen real type 3s, and I'm like, that person needs to take a break, rest. Let's go to type 4s. So type 4s are called the romantic.
Tragic romantic.
Romantic. So type 4s, I would like to hear your thoughts more about type 4s, but from my understanding, type 4s are very in touch with the depth of emotions, almost to a fault. If they feel sad, which is melancholy, is something that's actually comfortable for them. They like feeling sad.
I would say they are okay in that mood. They don't feel like, if as much as the other types, when things are very kind of sad or so much emotional and there is that feeling of sadness and melancholy. Type 4 is okay in that mood. Some of them might actually even enjoy and kind of, like that. They become friends with that mode, like with that mood actually. But most of the other types and most of the other people are not really feeling comfortable in that, and they just try to do something to get out of that mood.
Yeah. Is it fair to say, well, I mean, again, you're going to say, like, we need statistics to prove this, but I was going to say, is it fair to say that, say that maybe like most poets who really write poems that are very emotional, like Rumi, for example, like are in the depth of emotion, like what is in there? Like, so they're so deep in that emotional world that they can teach all of us it's almost like they're exploring depths of the ocean and they're telling everybody else, like, this is how deep emotions go. I feel like most poets are, or at least Persian poets, are like type 4s.
It has been said that many of the type 4s are actually having a good talent to become artists, because they're so much in touch with that inner world of emotion. it's much easier for them to bring that and create something out of it, you know. Of course, that doesn't mean that whoever is, you know, like an artist is necessarily a type 4. And about the statistics that I mentioned, of course, Enneagram is based on real data, you know, throughout like so many years of, you know, and centuries that people are actually adding to that data. But I guess on that specific question that you mentioned, I thought in this specific day, you know, like aspect of that, if I don't know something and I'm not sure about something, I would like to talk with some data, with some proof, you know, like that. Yes, this is it. Yeah. For especially my type 1, you know, like strong type 1. Type 4, you know, in type 4, the attention goes to like, am I properly heard? You know, like, so 2, 3, and 4 are all image conscious and having that emotion and that distress, and maybe also a little feeling shy, a little bit is also not a bad word, but that emotional distress that they have, that type 2 is like, do you love me? You know, of course, type 6 can also ask that, but with a different motive. 3 is that, so other people love me, I'm just going to be the best. I'm going to be very, very good at whatever is best in this society or in this group. Type 4 is almost going towards, they're not going to understand me anyway.
Yeah, which is funny because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So type 4s tend to have that assumption that nobody's going to understand them because they are different. And they are sad about the fact that everybody else seems to be able to easily fit in, but they can't. They stand out. And the self-fulfilling prophecy there is that like they tend to do things that really makes them seem different. And like not different in like, oh, that's awesome, but like different in like, whoa, like who is that person? You know, like stay away. And then they're like, oh, see, like they don't like me, you know. Is that accurate?
Yes. I'm just very cautious, and I want to be very, very, you know, like cautious to say something because so many different people are watching this video, and I don't want to feel like, oh, I'm type 4, I'm not really feeling like that, and I've never been like that. So it is most of the time said that not all the types are having everything, like all the characteristics of types, but definitely the main things, they could actually find these things. So that's true. Most of the type 4s are actually even themselves are going to add to that, as you said, self-fulfilling prophecy, that they subconsciously, you know, for those who have not worked on themselves, as, you know, like inner work in Enneagram, we discussed that word, you know, they haven't put enough time to understand themselves, figuring out their type and go forward with that, learn and have it under control. These types are actually most of the time are like being pre-processed in our subconscious before we actually getting to the level of doing it and feeling it, you know, or like having that thought. Those are done prior to the level that come to our consciousness. You know, if you want to discuss it about, you know, like neuroscience, before they actually come to this, you know, like to the prefrontal cortex, that things are actually getting analyzed, you know, like they're already analyzed. And for example, type 2 has this tendency to, without them even know, they're kind of like previously chosen the people who they're gonna help. Because like subconsciously you are not aware, but you're gonna help a certain kind of people, not everybody, you know. You don't help that person there that he's not gonna or she's not gonna do anything for you. What's the use in that for me? Although type 2 is not aware of this pre-choosing mechanism. So for type 4 is also like that. Like if I want to make my hair, you know, like if I want to keep it in a color which is different with the entire world, in the entire history, I'm just gonna come to a color which is different with everything, and I keep it as my true nature, you know, like, and this is me, and, you know, like, this idea is happening, this pre-processing is happening in the subconscious, that I have to be different with others.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Do you want to move to the last group? Sure. So let's start with type 6. Type 6 is the first type I learned about, and And I think their primary emotion is fear. They live in a constant state of like, it's like that Murphy's Law, if you've ever heard of it. It's like everything that can go wrong will go wrong. That's kind of like the state of being of a type 6. They live in a reality that to them is very dangerous. Things can go wrong all the time. So their mode of survival is, okay, I need to think about everything that can go wrong, and then I need to prepare for everything that can go wrong. And like I was thinking about how, while we're filming this, we're like in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic stuff going on. I was like, wow, type 6 are like having the time of their life right now, possibly, because they're like, yeah, I saw this coming like 10 years ago, and they're prepared in all shapes and forms. But yeah, I think type 6s can teach us what it looks like to really think about problems that might occur and then plan for them. And that's at least something I've learned from type 6.
That's a very good point. This is very easy to make this mistake to like pick on people about their type. So it's first of all the best practice that we always work on ourselves rather than going and putting numbers and names on other people. And often, even in like close friendship, which people don't mind to discuss about types and, okay, what do you think about me? How do you see it? Which is fine in that, platform. But we should not consider type as, if somebody is like, for example, right now worried about coronavirus, we should not tell, oh, this is your type 6, I know that, so what? That's okay. That's part of, the fear is there because we need to stay alive. If the fear is never there, then we could not stay alive, because that's all these fundamental feelings and moods are definitely needed there. The point is just how to keep it under control and useful rather than, they control us.
Exactly.
So again, 6 is in the middle of the mind-based types, and kind of disconnected again, or like neutral towards within. So type 6 goes outside for approval. Not this is the approval for actually like confirming whether I'm correct or not, whether this is the right decision or not, whether this is safe or can I trust this? And at the same time, they kind of have the issue of trusting others and at the same time asking questions. So this they call the loyal skeptical. They're very, very loyal. It's going to take a while for them to trust someone, but when they trust someone, it's going to take really like a long time where you have to do something really, really bad so they actually give up on you. And then type 5 goes, the attention and the energy goes within and inside and down. And like, I'm just going to go and figure out things by myself through reading books, searching in the internet, through the references. And type 7 actually goes out, and don't want to stay in one place because the fear is also there that, maybe there is something better somewhere or another taste or another experience that I don't want to miss that one out, So I'm just going to move on forward and kind of like justify things to quickly accept opportunities and suggestions.
So we're going to talk about type 5s and type 7s, but type 7s seem to have a fear of missing out. So like, because when you look at this, when we explain type 7 soon, type 7, when you hear it for the first time, it doesn't really seem like they have any fear. It seems like they're having fun, everything's good, they're playing, like there's no fear. But it's actually really good to like think about, oh no, like they have a fear. It just looks different.
There are certain types that they're actually not aware of that. Like type 7 is, in average, they're not even aware of that fear. They don't think, like type 6 kind of is aware,
What about type 5?
Type 5 is easier for type 5 comparing to 7 to realize that I'm worried about something. Type 6 knows it. Type 5 is, there's so many different experiences out there. I don't want to just say one thing and others would say like this is, so I'm just talking in average based on my knowledge. Type 5, my personal experience with the variety of type 5s is that they're very concentrated on, they can see that I want to be, I want to learn completely about something before I make a step forward and before I make the decision. Like it's not necessarily the point of focus. The point of focus, the attention goes to making sure everything, I know everything before I make a step forward. And actually for type 5, that decision making and making the first step, actual physical step, act towards what they want to do might actually get delayed because they get stuck in that delay, in that phase of gathering data and analyzing and more and more and more. I remember one of my friends wanted to buy a laptop. He told me like, oh, I guess I need a new laptop. I said, okay, go ahead. Let's go outside and get it. He said, what? He said, if I want to buy a laptop, it at least takes me like 2 months to just go through internet, compare all these laptops, prices, this, that, So, and we were laughing because he knew he was 5 and I knew I was 2.
I used to think I was a 5 too, because I tend to, I used to think I was a 5, but I remember like hearing about that data collection. When I was younger, I was obsessed with gathering as much data on a cell phone. I used to love, learning about cell phones. So the idea of just walking in the store and buying a cell phone, especially where me and you are both from Iran, like cell phones were really expensive. So the idea of like making a decision haphazardly was to me like terrifying, especially because I saved all that money from allowances. So for me, I used to like buy so many magazines, put all the phones side by side in those magazines that they were talking about them, and then just like maybe spend like 2 months just analyzing that. But again, that doesn't mean necessarily just because I do that I'm a type 5, but what that shows is that we can all learn from type 5s because so often we might make a decision without analyzing all the facts and looking at all the data.
I am actually, in my personal life, when I need some more information or I want to make tough decisions, I actually go to my type 5 friends and kind of have a conversation with them on that topic if I know they know about it, because I know if they went towards that topic, they probably have a lot of good information. And I wanted to also mention that type 1 is also one of those types that if you ask him like, are you angry, he's gonna or she's gonna say, no, I'm not angry. Or he's not aware of the anger, just like type 7 is not so much aware of that fear. He's like, there's no fear, I'm just trying to enjoy life, that's it.
So type 5s are actually called the thinker, which we talked about type 5 already a lot, and just knowing that title, like it really explains their tendency. They tend to be, can you say like they tend to be really deep thinkers in the form of like maybe philosophers even?
It is said that many of the philosophers were type 5, and the reason I guess is obvious because they just live with books, resources, references. Right now, I guess book means also internet, like reading. They don't want to so much like necessarily ask you about things. They just want to go and touch it themselves, although with the mind, not really with the heart or with the body.
And then they also tend to be somewhat disconnected from emotions, especially like intimate or emotional.
Yes, type 5, as you said, thinker or observer also they're called. Sometimes said like they're like this little alien in the brain, and this body is just some sort of a medium shell, and they just experience life through their brain and through mentality and through mind by analyzing things and learning about them through that. And just experience life from behind their glass of control room, something like that. And that is because for type 5, how much energy, how much resource of energy do I have? The idea is that this is limited. That's their concern, So, an emotion and being with so many people and just like out there and just get really active and just and get like engaged with people and so much emotion, that's too much. I need to preserve it. I need to like home or house for a type 5 is a place that I can go back and recharge my batteries. I just need time for myself. Like I have a type 5 friend, and then like I always want to go out, like be with people, and more is even better, like and it's a very learning process. It's a very good learning process when you have friends that they know their types, and they're also working on themselves on Enneagram, and the interactions is just amazing. We learn from each other, and that's by the way that the tradition. I mean, I initially started with classical Enneagram, but then I also learned and went through the classes with the narrative Enneagram, which is more of sharing from, I share from myself, you share from yourself, and we learn as a group together, So yeah, my interactions with type 5 is one of the, maybe for us it's just the funniest, because we can see we're really, really good friends, know. But at the same time, we see each other we're totally two different. And sometimes, we say how are we good friends? We're different in so many ways.
It doesn't type 2 go, no, it doesn't go to type 5, does it? Type 2?
Oh, as far as the stress and distress, no.
Okay.
No. Type 2 goes to 4 when it's going towards balance or integration, and 8 when it goes towards stress. And type 5 actually goes to 7 and 8.
So they become a little bit more relaxed and upbeat and
Sorry,
fun.
5 goes to 5 goes to 7 and 8.
Awesome. Well, we're going to move to the last type that we're going to discuss, type 7, which I call the enthusiast. And let me see what other names we have.
Epicure. There was this philosopher, and he's, and they were actually famous as, Epicurean, or I'm not sure the exact way it's pronounced, so the followers of Epicure. And their idea was life is just, a chance for us between birth and death to enjoy, so that's also one of the other, I have a student which is coming to my Enneagram courses, because in Keystone I'm offering more than one course. It just goes forward and get deeper and deeper and deeper. So once she told me a very beautiful statement, and I really liked it. She said, I really feel like I'm a tourist here in this world. That was the feeling, and it was one of the really coolest statements I got from a type 7.
Yeah.
She literally said, I feel like I'm a tourist here. Life is just, I'm a tourist at life.
Yeah. Which goes back to what you were saying earlier about how it's so powerful when you have a friend that is another type, and they know that type, they know that they are that type, and they express these feelings. You might research type 7 all day and not find the word tourist about them, but when you hear that, you're I get that feeling. That's awesome. Type 7s tend to, when I think about them, I just imagine I've had a type 7 friend who, okay, maybe he wasn't type 7 because I never compared
I like
this.
that. You're not judging people. I like that.
But I remember he always helped me have more fun. And I remember I'd be just sitting, at home on the weekend, and he's like, why are we not doing X, Y, and Z? I'm like, why do we always have to do something? But then again, if I didn't have a friend like that, I would be sitting at home always.
It's interesting because that person could have been also type 2, because type 2 and type 7, they're both doing that. They come to you and make things fun. They both may actually even pay for the whole thing, but type 2 does it to make you feel good.
Right.
That's the main motive. But type 7 wants to actually have fun, so he needs partner for having fun.
But he might still go without a partner. Type 7 is so dedicated, I feel like.
Yeah, she's not necessarily staying there and making, or he or she does not necessarily type 2 wants to just make, type 2 defines his or her identity with that friendship group or network that type 2 is developing, but not necessarily type 7. Type 7 wants to have that fun, that excitement, that, that, because type 7 is actually identifying the self with, if I'm not having that excitement and that cool new experiences, then who am I, but not necessarily type 2. So these two, from outside, you look at them and they might look, both of them are very social, extrovert, lovely, having so much fun, but the inner motives are really different.
Yeah. Which again is the beauty of Enneagram. You can look at two types that outwardly look similar, but then the internal world is completely different. So for me, when I think about the downsides of being a type 7, it's mostly that there are times that, like, let's say you're a child and you're always wanting to have fun and play. There are times that you need to be an adult and like take care of more serious stuff and be more serious. Like, for example, if you're trying to buy a house, which is a big investment, like if you're just like, oh, like fun, it's great. Like I met this person, they said they sell houses and I just bought it. Like, no, yeah, like you need to have a little bit more type 5 attitude or maybe type 6 skepticism about those things and be more serious. So type 7s tend to downplay seriousness, whereas like I feel like type 6 tend to maybe be too serious, or type 1s. And so the pitfall for type 7s might be that like they are so dedicated to always having fun experiences that they shy away from having those more serious situations.
Yes, they actually justify. That's the defense mechanism. Actually, they justify the options. So to tell themselves, to justify for themselves, oh, that's cool. Let's do it. And that might often become, if they are going towards the unhealthy level of type, that they actually might make mistakes and then put themselves and those who are related to them in trouble. Because type 4 tends to just see the empty half of the glass, and type 7 is more going towards the full half of the glass. So they might make a good balance.
Yeah.
I was just sharing an idea. I'm not, because that's not necessarily in the Enneagram that this has to be with this person. The idea is that if we work on ourselves and we make ourselves balanced as far as like the personality and the mentality, and like balance these types, and then I can just deal with anyone and in any situation.
Yeah. Which we're going to go a lot more in depth in future videos about growth of each type. So that was kind of like a brief overview. I mean, it's not really brief because it's probably like 40-minute long video, but that's how deep Enneagram goes. We just barely even scratched the surface of the depth of these types. But if you want to learn more, on our website, keystam.com, which you can find the link in the description below, we have courses. Inner Observer 1 is a perfect place to start. We go in depth in every single type of Enneagram, and we offer but paths of growth as well. And then in future courses, we go even more in depth and more in depth. Enneagram is truly a beautiful tool when you start understanding it, and when you start, it's almost like, when you know and understand Enneagram, you've put on these glasses that before you didn't have, and now you start seeing the world in like X-ray vision. Like things that you couldn't accept before, now you see, and you're like, oh, it's because that person is a type this, and not that you go and tell them that, and like you're like type 6, you always act like this. Like, no, but that gift of Enneagram can totally like transform how you view yourself, and then how you view others, and how you see all of us playing our role. It's not like, wow, I just don't understand why somebody would be like that. You see how that person plays a role in this beautiful thing we call life. So please check those out. And future videos, we're going to talk about growth for each type, the strengths and weaknesses of each type. And in some of our courses on Keystam, we're going to talk about relationships for each type as well. So thank you guys for watching. Again, this is PJ.
Ashkan.
And we are the co-founders of Keystam. Thank you.